I'm 31 now, but this happened when I was 30, about 6 months ago, give or take. I don't talk about it much. Not because I've made peace with it, but because saying it out loud makes it feel more real. And truthfully, I'm still not sure how real it was. I was living in Oregon at the time, in a cheap rental on the outskirts of Eugene. Life had kind of fallen apart. My dad had passed unexpectedly. I'd lost my job a few weeks after the funeral, and my sister and I had a falling out that ended in us not speaking anymore. I was untethered. Every day felt like trying to breathe through a wet towel. So I did what I always did when I needed to clear my head. I packed up my gear and headed into the forest. But not just any trail. I wasn't looking for marked paths or scenic overlooks. I was after isolation. Silence. The kind of silence you can only find where cell service dies and the only sound at night is the wind pressing through pine branches. There's a stretch of forest out past Deadman's Hollow, real name, if you can believe that, where most people don't go. Too overgrown. No maps. Just animal trails and long-forgotten logging roads. I'd been out there once before with a buddy from college, years back. We never stayed overnight, though. Something about the place had made him uneasy. At the time, I'd written it off as nerves. But that memory did stick with me when I packed my things. Not enough to stop me. Just enough to make me feel a little stupid. I left early, before sunrise. No plans. No GPS. Just a mental image of the way in, a backpack full of gear, and this gnawing feeling that I needed to be somewhere no one could reach me. And that's exactly what I got. Or at least, I thought that's what I was getting. It was early afternoon when I finally reached the edge of the hollow. You don't really arrive at Deadman's Hollow the way you do a park or a trailhead. There's no sign, no welcome marker. The paved road turns to gravel, then to dirt, then to something that barely even counts as a road. Trees crowd close to the sides, like they're trying to swallow the path whole. That's how I knew I was close. I parked my Jeep in a small clearing just big enough to turn around in, then killed the engine. The silence hit me instantly. Not the peaceful kind, but that heavy, unnatural quiet that presses on your ears like altitude. I stepped out, stretched, and took a deep breath. The air smelled wet, like moss and decaying leaves. It wasn't exactly pleasant, but it was real. Raw. And that's what I'd come for. I slung my pack over my shoulder and started walking. There wasn't a trail, just a faint suggestion of where the underbrush had been parted before. I figured it was probably an old game path. Still, it was enough to follow. After about a mile in, I passed an old rusted-out piece of logging equipment half swallowed by vines. A claw arm, maybe, or a trailer frame, it was hard to tell anymore. That's when I noticed the boot prints. They weren't mine. Fresh, too. Not crusted over, not weathered. A single set, deep in the mud, heading in the same direction I was going. Someone else had been out here recently. Maybe was still out here. I paused, listening, but there was nothing. Just the faint rustle of leaves. That little voice in the back of my head started whispering, "Turn back." But I didn't listen. I told myself it was probably some hunter, or maybe a local who knew the area better than I did. Nothing to be paranoid about. Still, that sense of solitude I'd driven all this way to find, it was gone. And something else had taken its place. I must have hiked another 20, maybe 30 minutes, deeper into Deadman's Hollow, before I saw anyone. It happened suddenly. One moment I was ducking under a low-hanging branch, the next I heard a sharp crack off to my left, like a stick snapping underfoot. I froze. Listened. Nothing. Then, maybe 50 yards through the trees, I saw movement. At first, I thought it was just a deer. But then I made out the shape, definitely a person. Male. Wearing a faded brown hoodie with the hood up and cargo pants that looked 2 sizes too big. He wasn't walking. He was standing, still as a post, half hidden behind a tree, just watching me. I raised a hand and called out, "Hey there." Just passing through. No response. He didn't move. Didn't even flinch. There was something off about the way he was standing, too stiff, like he wasn't sure how to be a person. I tried to laugh it off and turned to keep walking. That's when he finally spoke. "You're not supposed to be here." His voice was quiet. Flat. Not angry, but factual. Like he was reading it from a book. I stopped. Turned back. "Sorry? I didn't know this was private land." He didn't answer that. Just tilted his head slightly, like a confused dog, and said, "He doesn't like visitors." That hit wrong. I looked around, scanning the forest. Still no one else. "Who's he?" The man didn't answer. Just slowly turned and walked back into the trees. Not ran. Not hurried. Just walked, like he had all the time in the world. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to process what just happened. Maybe he was messing with me. Locals sometimes did that to spook outsiders. Or maybe he was mentally ill. I didn't know. But something about the whole interaction didn't sit right. Not the words. Not his tone. Not the way he moved. I told myself again that I was overthinking it. I'd come out here to be alone. I wasn't going to let one weirdo ruin that. So I pressed on. But I kept glancing back over my shoulder. More than once, I eventually found a spot that felt secluded enough. It was a small clearing ringed by fir trees, with a gentle slope that ran down toward a dry creek bed. No footprints. No beer cans. No signs of anyone else having been there. That helped, at least a little. I dropped my pack, stretched out my sore legs, and tried to push that guy from earlier out of my mind. I kept telling myself the same things. It's just a loner. He's probably off-grid. Maybe high. Maybe just weird. He left. I'm fine. The sun was already starting to dip below the tree line, so I set up my tent and got a small fire going. I heated up some instant noodles, opened a flask of cheap whiskey, and tried to let the tension bleed off. The flames helped. So did the sky, streaked pink and gold, the kind of quiet beauty I came out here for. But that sense of peace never really came. Every small sound in the woods felt exaggerated, twigs snapping, distant rustling, even the wind threading through the trees felt heavier, like it was trying to say something. I kept catching myself glancing back toward the direction I'd come from. At one point, I thought I heard whispering. Not clear words, just that low, hushed rhythm of voice on air. I shut off the fire early that night. No reading. No sitting around to stargaze. I climbed into my tent before it was even fully dark and zipped myself in. Inside, I laid my flashlight beside me and kept my multi-tool close. Just in case. I kept telling myself that I was being paranoid. That it was just the isolation playing tricks on my brain. But then I thought about that guy again, his posture, his words. He doesn't like visitors. I pulled the zipper on the tent up just a little, leaving a gap I could peek through. I didn't expect to see anything. But even in the fading light, I could have sworn I saw someone standing just past the tree line. Not moving. Just standing there. I shut the zipper. And didn't sleep a damn minute that night. By the time morning came, I looked like hell. My eyes were dry and bloodshot from not sleeping, and my body ached from staying tense for too long in that cramped little tent. But the strangest thing? There were no footprints. No disturbed leaves. Nothing to prove someone had actually been out there watching me the night before. And that somehow made it worse. I told myself maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe the stress and the booze got the better of me. Still, I didn't waste time packing. I had no intention of staying another night. My plan was simple: eat, break camp, and hike back to the Jeep. But something stopped me. Curiosity, maybe. Or stubbornness. Maybe something dumber than both. Instead of hiking out, I decided to do a short loop through the surrounding woods, nothing far, just a little recon. To prove to myself there was nothing out there. That's when I found the trail. Not a real one, more like a break in the brush, half hidden. Definitely not made by animals. I followed it. Only a few hundred feet in, I came across an old fire pit. Long cold, surrounded by rocks. In the middle was a pile of bones. Not human, too small. Rabbit, maybe. But they'd been arranged. Stacked carefully. On top of the pile sat something that looked like a jawbone. Bleached white. Balanced deliberately, like it was on display. I was about to turn back when I heard it again, footsteps. This time they weren't cautious or quiet. They were fast. Intentional. I spun around, already reaching for the hunting knife strapped to my belt. But what I saw made my blood run cold. It was the man from before. Same hoodie. Same blank stare. But he wasn't alone this time. Behind him, half shielded by the trees, stood another figure. Taller. Heavier. Wearing a dirty tan coat with the hood pulled low. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his stare. The first man raised a hand. He remembers you. I didn't say anything. He remembers your face. Your voice. What the hell are you talking about? I asked, taking a step back. You called to him. Last night. My mouth was dry. I didn't call anyone. The man in the tan coat stepped forward. Not fast. Just deliberate. Like he was waiting for something. My instincts screamed at me, run. So I did. I turned and bolted through the brush, branches clawing at my arms, roots nearly tripping me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could hear them behind me. Not running. Just following. Because they knew exactly where I was going. I don't remember how long I ran. At some point, my legs just stopped working right, half from exhaustion, half from the uneven ground. I collapsed behind a fallen tree, panting, trying not to vomit. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might crack a rib. I hadn't heard them in a while. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. That should have made me feel better. But it didn't. If anything, the silence felt worse, like the woods themselves were holding their breath. By some stroke of luck, I managed to circle back to my camp. My gear was still there. My pack was untouched. But the tent was slashed open. Not torn by accident or animal claws. Cut. Clean, long slices, like from a blade. 3 of them. 1 across the front, 2 across the sides. Like someone wanted me to know they'd been inside. I stood there for a long time, just staring at it. Everything I'd packed, the food, the sleeping bag, the flashlight, was still there. Nothing missing. Except for my journal. It was gone. It had just been a small black moleskine I kept for notes, sketches, random thoughts. Nothing important. Except now someone had it. Someone who'd stood outside my tent last night. Someone who said I called to them. Night fell faster than I expected, like the sun couldn't get out of Deadman's hollow fast enough. I tried to build a fire, but every match sputtered and went out. The lighter wouldn't even spark. My hands were shaking too badly. I ended up curled beside the ruined tent, knife in hand, flashlight clenched in the other. I didn't turn it on. I was too afraid of what I might see. That's when the whispering came back. Only this time, it was closer. Not behind the trees. Not across the clearing. It was behind me. Right by my ear. Just a single sentence, so quiet I could barely catch it. He's inside now. I spun, slashing the knife into empty air. There was nothing there. No movement. No sound. But I swear on everything, I could feel someone behind me. Breathing. I turned on the flashlight. The beam flickered weakly, catching nothing but trees and shadows. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, I heard a scream. Not an animal. Human. And it sounded exactly like me. For a few seconds, I was frozen. Not scared, but paralyzed. That scream hadn't just sounded like me. It was me. Same tone. Same cadence. The same strained voice I'd heard coming out of my own mouth 1,000 times. But I hadn't screamed. I stood there, flashlight trembling in my grip, trying to breathe. The wind had picked up. Not strong, but steady. Cold. Wrong. It didn't feel like weather, it felt like pressure, like something invisible was circling me. Then I saw the light. Just through the trees to the west, faint and flickering, like firelight. I don't know why, but I started walking toward it. Every instinct screamed to turn and run the opposite direction. But my legs moved anyway. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe it was something worse. As I got closer, I heard the voice again. He's waiting. And then another voice, mine again, laughing. Quiet, breathy, like it came from a dream I forgot the moment I woke up. The firelight led me to another clearing. Smaller than mine. At the center was a bonfire made of branches stacked too perfectly, like a ritual. Around it, someone had arranged a ring of small wooden figures. I recognized them instantly. They looked like me. Carved crudely but unmistakably, my short hair, my heavy coat, even the scar on my left eyebrow. 12 of them. All facing inward. And standing just beyond the fire, barely visible through the heat shimmer, was the man in the tan coat. Still hooded. Still silent. But this time, I could feel his attention like a weight. Like hands pressing on my shoulders. He raised one arm slowly and pointed. Not at me. At the space next to the fire. There was a 13th figure. Unfinished. Lying on its side. A carving knife sat beside it. I don't know what happened next, if something snapped inside me or if some primal survival switch finally flipped, but I turned and ran. Harder than before. Branches slashed at my arms and face. My boots caught roots, nearly dropped me more than once. I didn't care. I just knew I had to get out. Get to the Jeep. Get out of Deadman's Hollow. When I broke through the trees and saw my vehicle, miraculously untouched, I nearly sobbed. I flung the door open, slammed the keys in, and peeled out down that godforsaken dirt road, not even bothering to shut the back hatch. I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. I didn't want to know if he was behind me. I didn't stop driving until I hit pavement again. Even then, I didn't slow down. Not until I pulled into a gas station off Route 126, headlights flickering against the concrete like they were struggling to stay alive. I sat in the car for a long time. The sky was starting to lighten, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt hollow. Like I had come back from somewhere I wasn't supposed to go. Somewhere no one was supposed to find. Eventually, I went inside and asked to use the restroom. I must have looked like hell, mud-caked, bleeding from the face, eyes wide and half-crazed, because the clerk just nodded and handed me the key without a word. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. Not just checking the damage. Looking. Trying to see if I was still me. After washing up, I sat in the parking lot with a coffee I didn't drink and thought about calling the police. But what would I even say? Hi, yeah, there's a cult in the woods that's carving little wooden versions of me and whispering in my voice. Click. Instead, I drove home. Locked every door. Pulled the shades. Didn't leave for days. When I finally worked up the nerve, I went online and tried searching for anything about Deadman's Hollow. I found barely anything. A few mentions of logging accidents from the 60s. A local hiker who went missing in 2004. Some Reddit thread about an old root cellar out there that people claimed was haunted, but no photos. No names. No explanations. I called the ranger station, too, just to ask, casually, if there were any known campsites out there. They told me it wasn't a maintained area. Too remote, they said. Most people stay clear. Good. They should. It's been 6 months now. I've tried to move on. Got a new place. A new job. Haven't been camping since, and I don't think I ever will. But sometimes, just sometimes, I still hear that voice. In my head. In my sleep. Not whispering anymore. Laughing. And every now and then, I'll wake up in the middle of the night with the sense that something's been in the room. Watching. Waiting. Listening. I check the windows. The locks. I make sure I'm still alone. But I can never find the journal. The one they took. It hasn't turned up since. And the worst part? I have this sick feeling that one day, it will. And it won't be empty anymore.